Welcome to the Firewall Analyzer Training Part 1 Season 3. A brief introduction about myself. I am Mauli Srinivasan, product expert in Firewall Analyzer. I have more than 6 years experience in product marketing. So what is Firewall Analyzer? Firewall Analyzer is a monitoring and reporting software. It is a policy and log analytics tool. Now, let us look at a more important question in hand. Why should one go for Firewall Analyzer? For this, I would like to propose a scenario. Say you want to get fit and hence you buy a Fitbit. Do you think that just by buying and wearing a Fitbit, you're going to get fit? The obvious answer is no. Instead, analyzing your performance in the gym and incorporating changes at regular intervals will help you achieve the desired fitness goals. Similarly, for a healthy network, it is of utmost importance that all your network security devices are continuously monitored and necessary changes are made to optimize the device performance. Similar to how a Fitbit continuously monitors a body, Firewall Analyzer continuously monitors the firewall. Now that you know what and why you need a Firewall Analyzer for, let us look at the agenda for the day. Number one, we are going to look at some of the basics of Firewall Analyzer. Next, we are going to look at how to fetch policies and configuration from your firewall device to the Firewall Analyzer. Once we fetch policies and configuration, we are going to look at rule management, how to optimize firewall rules. Next is change management, how to monitor configuration changes. Finally, we're going to look at how to generate compliance and security audit reports. So listed here is the basic installation requirement. Firewall Analyzer can be installed on a Windows or a Linux system. All the syslogs received by Firewall Analyzer by default is stored in PostgreSDB. If needed, you can also configure the syslogs to be stored in MS SQL Server. The disk space and RAM size mentioned here are the minimum requirement. The same might vary depending on the number of devices being analyzed and the number of devices sending log information to Firewall Analyzer. With this basic requirement fulfilled, you can install Firewall Analyzer in your system. Now, let us look at the steps to fetch device rules. Step 1 is to configure your firewall device to generate syslogs at UDP port 1514, which would act as the listener port for Firewall Analyzer. Once you receive the syslogs from the firewall to Firewall Analyzer, credential profile can be set for that specific device in Firewall Analyzer. Step 1 and 2 will be covered in detail in the next session on July 30th. So step 3, once you set the credentials, you now have to fetch rules and configuration from your firewall and add device to the device room. The following are the prerequisite ports that need to be free and the respective protocols would be used. Port number 22, SSH and SCP. Port number 69 for TFTP. Port number 23 for Telnet. And finally, last but not the least, as mentioned before, UDP port 1514 for our Firewall Analyzer to receive syslogs. Once we establish a connection with the following protocols: Telnet, Telnet TFTP, SSH, SSH TFTP, SCP, We can add the device in the device rule by fetching the rules and configuration from the firewall. We can fetch rules and configuration by basically two methods. Number one, you can directly fetch rules and configuration from your firewall using CLI or API. API fetching is currently available for select firewall vendors, and the list will be shared at the end of the PPT. Given below is the sample screenshot on how to add device info. Given on the left is the CLI of a firewall device. We have taken a case of Cisco firewall. On the right is the Firewall Analyzer product UI. First, you need to enter the username, password, prompt, enable command, enable password, and enable prompt. I'll show you how the same can be done in the product UI. So this is the Firewall Analyzer product UI. Click on settings, and in settings under firewall server, click on device rule. And in device rule, click on add. So as I mentioned before, you can fetch firewalls using API or CLI. API is currently available for select firewall vendors. I'll show you how to do it with CLI too. So as I mentioned before, enter a login name, enter the password. I'm giving test credentials out here. Enter prompt, enable command, enable password, and finally enable prompt. And once you hit validate, you can check if your credentials are a match. You can check if all the credentials that you have given are right. And then click on add. And click on save. Once you click on save, if you have given the correct credentials, Cisco ASA will be added under the device rule. Here I've just given test credentials, hence it is not added. I'll delete it for now. Once you have added the device under the device rule, both rules and configuration will be fetched and the device will be added under the device rule. So in case if you have multiple firewalls and you want to add the device info in device rule, doing this one by one is an arduous task. Say you have 10 firewall devices and you want to add device credentials, doing them one by one would be a very difficult task. A simpler way is to create credential profile and apply that to different firewalls. That is, given the case that you are using the same credentials for multiple firewalls. So let us look at how this can be done in the product UI. Again, click on settings. Under settings, click under firewall server, click on credential profile. And in credential profile, click on add. So you can set a credential profile name and you can select the protocol, the device that you want to add the credential profile to, and you enter the login name, login password, enable password, and prompt and enable prompt. Once you do that, click on save. You can see that this credential profile has been added. So when you are adding the device to the device rule, that is in device rule, whenever you are adding this device via CLI, you can add this credential profile and all the credentials will be added automatically, and hence you can do this for multiple firewalls with ease. So the second way to add device in the device rule is to directly upload rules and configuration. For this, first you can export the configuration file from your firewall. Next, you need to create a rule file manually. So it is a text file with each rule listed in a single line in the respective order, and each rule needs to be separated by a comma. This is the rule file that you have to create. Once you have these two files, you can import the rule file and configuration file respectively and add device to the device rule. You also need to import the configuration file. Let us look at how this is done in the product UI. So click on settings, and under device room, under firewall server, click on device room, and in device room click on add and click on file. So as I mentioned before, you have to create the rule file and then import the rule file and then import the configuration file that you downloaded from your firewall and hit import. Once you import, all the rules and configurations are fetched and the respective firewall is added under the device rule. So the firewall will be registered under the device rule and a tick status will be given if the credentials are all right, correct. Once you fetch rules and configuration from the firewall, you get access to 3 reports. First is the rule management report, second is the change management report, and third is the security audit and compliance report. Now, let us look at a scenario. So Jim is a new security admin who has joined a company, and in his company there have been a lot of network security issues. As a preliminary task, he has been asked to do the following. Number 1 is to optimize firewall policies and rules. Number 2 is to monitor and audit changes made to the firewall configuration. Number 3, he needs to submit a detailed compliance and security audit reports highlighting all the vulnerabilities in his network. So let us look at what are the challenges faced by Jim and how he overcomes these challenges. Let us look at the first task in hand for Jim, how to optimize firewall policy. So Jim has the following challenges. It is a 10-year-old company and there are nearly more than 1,000 rules for him to review. He has to review each rule manually and has no direct visibility into the existing rules. And since it is an old company and rules have not been reviewed from day one, there are a lot of duplicate and unused rules. More than one security admin have written the rules, and hence rules are also highly unoptimized. Not only this, as I mentioned earlier, the company has more than 1,000 rules, and hence any new rule that Jim plans to add might have a negative impact on the existing rule set. So let us look at how Firewall Analyzer's rule management report can help Jim optimize the firewall rules. First, the policy overview report. This report gives you the visibility to all the rules that have been written on the firewall. So you can filter rules according to allowed or denied rules, inbound or outbound rules, inactive rules, logging disabled rules, or any-to-any permissive rules. You can also download and analyze the list of rules. Let us look at how this looks in the product UI. So in product UI, click on compliance, and in compliance, under rule management, click on policy overview and select the firewall for which you need the list of all the rules. Currently I've selected Cisco Firepower. So in this you can see the list of all the rules that are written in this firewall. Not only that, you also get all the details such as the name, the rule number, source, destination, source interface, destination interface, service applied on, and action, uh, whether it's a allowed or a denied rule. So any allowed rule will be shown as a tick and denied rule will have this symbol. And as I mentioned before, you can also filter the rules according to allowed rules. So allowed rules have a tick, denied rules, inbound rules, outbound rules, inactive rules, logging disabled rules, and overly permissive rules. And as I mentioned before, you can also click on this and either download as a PDF or as a CSV file for further analysis or for record. You can also schedule this policy overview report and have a list of all the firewall rules on a regular basis directly scheduled. So now that Jim has solved the visibility issue into his existing rule set, he now has to address the second issue in hand. As mentioned before, the rules have been written by multiple security admins and have not been reviewed for over a long period of time. Because of this, there are a lot of anomalous rules which affect the performance of the firewall. Firewall Analyzer identifies the following rule anomalies: shadow anomaly, redundancy anomaly, generalization anomaly, correlation, and grouping. So in this slide, we have given a detailed example of all the anomalies detected by Firewall Analyzer. Don't worry, we will share the PPT with you once the training is over, and you can go through this list of anomalies. Now let us look at how the anomalies are shown in the product UI. Under compliance, under rule management, click on policy optimization. Select the firewall for which you want to check the rule anomalies for. I'll select FortiGate. So if you look at the FortiGate firewall, we have so many rule anomalies, and all these rule anomalies are listed here. You have 5 redundancy rules with redundancy. You have 4 rules which have generalization anomaly, 4 more rules with correlation, and 1 shadow anomaly. You can also filter the respective anomalies and check. For example, rule number 26 is correlated to rule number 4. So with this information, Jim can go back to his firewall, make the necessary changes so that the anomalies are removed to make the firewall rule performance better. Okay, next. With multiple security admins writing rules, the rules are not optimally arranged. For example, say that a new rule was written recently and this takes position number 500. But it is a rule which has a lot of hits, and in other words, a frequently used rule. Every time the firewall processor has to go through all the other 499 rules to get to this rule. This takes a hit on the firewall processing speed. Firewall Analyzer provides a rule reorder report which helps you solve this problem. Let us look at how this report looks in the product UI. So again, under compliance, under rule management, click on rule reorder. Once you click on rule reorder, you can see these are the suggestions. These are the list of suggestions for the rules, and rule name, that is 17, if moved from position 2 to 1, can possibly have an impact or performance improvement of 8%. So again, rule name 22, if moved from position 7 to 3, there is a chance of 20% performance improvement. So Jim can now go back to his firewall, make the necessary recommendations, enable it in his firewall, and check out if his performance has improved. The firewall performance has improved. Okay. Now, since it is a 10-year-old company, as mentioned before, there's a possibility that there are a lot of rules which is not used, and since it is out of place, the same rules might be used to breach the network. This is definitely a problem. With the Firewall Analyzer rule cleanup report, you get a detailed list of all the unused rules, unused objects, and unused interfaces. Let us look at how this looks in the product UI. Under compliance, under rule management, click on rule cleanup. If you see, these are the unused rules in the FortiGate firewall. These are the unused objects, and these are the unused interfaces. And you can also again download as export this as a PDF for records and record it. Once you get this, so it is recommended that you first deactivate these unused rules for a short period of time, and once you find that there is no impact in the network, the same can be safely removed. This will not only make your network safer, but would also aid in the firewall processing speed. So this is a new feature called the rule impact analysis. So before you add any rule, it is very difficult to know the impact it can have on your entire rule set. Firewall rules are not typically independent from one another. In fact, most rules have a direct impact on a set of another rule. Given this case, you must take utmost caution before adding a new rule in this firewall. The simplest of errors can trigger a massive security loophole that either allow malicious traffic to leak in or block legitimate traffic and disrupt normal business. With the Firewall Analyzer's rule impact analysis, you can easily determine if a proposed rule is going to impact the existing rule set negatively. The rule impact feature does the following. It checks the proposed new rule against the existing rule base for anomalies. It suggests an optimal rule order by analyzing the proposed new rule for rule complexity and anomalies. It identifies overly permissive destination interfaces for the proposed new rule. It detects and reports on service, application, and interface level threats. It singles out blacklisted IP addresses that are used in the proposed new rule, and it also provides risk assessment for relevant services, application, and interface ports. Now, let us look at the rule impact analysis feature in the product UI. Under compliance, under rule management, click on rule impact. So to do analysis, let us first define the rule or give all the rule credentials. So let us do a rule. Say we are adding a new rule. Let us give the name of a new rule as 101. And let us enter the rule position as 24. Let us enter the source. Let us keep it as any. Let us select the destination. Let us select the destination IP as 223.242.246.134. And next, let us select a source interface. Let us select it as WAN 1. Let us select a destination interface. Let us again select one of the interfaces, say internal. Let us select a service as FTP. And the action is allowed. So once you click on generate report, you get the list of, you get the rule impact analysis for this. So first you get the anomaly details. You can see that from the report, rule 100 is redundant with rule 18. And second, you get a rule reorder recommendation that is also provided. So it is suggested that if you move this rule from rule number 24 to rule number 10, there's a possibility of a 57% improvement to the firewall performance. We can see that there are no overly permissive any source in this rule, and you also get service or application level security threat details, and you also get a list of blacklisted IPs used in this rule. Currently there are no blacklisted IPs. Finally, you get a risk assessment for service or application level ports and interface level ports. And finally, you also get a list of objects which are repetitive with respect to both service objects and the source object in other rules. Hence, with this rule impact feature, Jim can clearly identify the negative interactions even before a rule is made live, so he can make the necessary changes to the rule and then make it live after testing it out here, testing the impact out here, or checking the impact out here in Firewall Analyzer. So now that Jim has reviewed all the rules and made necessary changes in his firewall to improve the performance of the rules, let us look at the second task he has been assigned, that is to monitor and record changes made to firewall configuration. Why do you need to do this? First is one of the employees in Jim's team left the company, and it is suspected that he did some damage to the firewall configuration. But this has gone unnoticed, and they have not been able to identify the exact specifics of the changes made. So obviously Jim's company want to avoid this in the future, and hence the second task that has been assigned is to Jim, that Jim has been assigned, is to monitor and record all changes to the firewall. Let us look at how Firewall Analyzer's change management report helps him solve this issue. As mentioned before, changes made to the firewall configuration had gone unnoticed, but with Firewall Analyzer, say if James makes a change to the firewall, this is recorded by Firewall Analyzer. Firewall Analyzer does not only track who made the change, but also when it was done and what was changed. Let us look at how this report looks in the product UI. Under compliance, click on change management and select the firewall. Again, select FortiGate. If you can see that today there has been a change made by James. So as I mentioned in the slide, if and when James had made a change, we get to know when James has made a change, and we also get to know what is the change that has been done. So these are the changes that have been made. So any configuration that has been added is listed in green color. Any configuration that has been modified is listed in blue color, and any configuration that has been deleted is listed in red color. With this, you get to know who made what change, when, and where. The best thing about the change management report is that you can also set alarm notifications directly to email or SMS whenever a change is made to the firewall configuration, so that you can be alerted. You can also schedule change management reports on a weekly or a daily basis. Let us look at how this is done in the product UI. Again, in the change management reports, compliance change management reports, you can click notification. So with this, if you enter an email ID, this email ID will be notified as to any change. For example, whenever James makes a change, you'll be notified by an email or an SMS if your phone is configured. You can also schedule these reports on a daily or a weekly basis, and this report will be sent again directly to your email. And thus, Jim has successfully completed his second task in hand. Now let us proceed to the next use case. So Jim's company need to be compliant with multiple security standards, but they are failing short with a lot of them. This has affected them so much that they have started losing customers as their compliance is not up to date. Jim has been assigned a task to submit a detailed compliance and security audit report. So now let us look at how Jim solves this issue using Firewall Analyzer. So Firewall Analyzer provides out-of-the-box compliance standard reports, which include SANS, PCI DSS, NIST, ISO, and NERC-CIP. This helps you periodically check for compliance and also lets you assess your firewall security. Let us look at how the report looks in the product UI. Again, click on compliance, and under compliance, click on standard. And as you can see, this FortiGate firewall, it is only 57% compliant with SANS, 54% compliance with NIST, 50% compliance with PCI DSS, 50% compliance with ISO, and 45% compliance with NERC. You also get a fail count as to how many sections this specific firewall has failed in, and you can also drill down and check into exactly which sections you have passed and failed. For that, I would like to again take you to the next slide. This is the case. So Jim is working in a card-based company which deals with a lot of financial transactions and hence have to be compliant with PCI DSS. Let us look at the so as I mentioned before, Jim's company is only 50% compliant with PCI DSS, and we have about 5 sections in which they have failed. Let us check as to exactly which sections they have failed in. So the ticks represent sections which they are compliant in. The star needs to be manually reviewed, and the sections which have been marked cross are sections which they have failed in. Let us take an example of a failed section, say 1.3.2, which states that limit inbound internet traffic to IP addresses within DMZs. So let us check why they have failed in this section. Click on this section, you see that these rules allow traffic from WANs to non-DMZs, and the descriptions of the rules have also been mentioned here. Now, a Recommendation is also given as to say do not allow any traffic from WAN to non-DMZs. Always allow inbound traffic destined to DMZs alone and secure DMZs properly. So with this recommendation, Jim can go back to his firewall, make the necessary changes, and make sure he is compliant with this specific section. Once he makes the change, he can again come back, refresh, and check if he is compliant with this. After removing these rules, he can check that he will be more compliant. So he can do this to each and every one of his every one of the standards and check whichever sections he has failed in and make sure he is compliant with most security standards. Next is the security audit report. Firewall Analyzer's security audit reports help you identify the configuration loopholes in your firewall. It lists security events based on criticality. So it lists how many events are critical, high, medium, low, or info. It provides a detailed finding with its impact on the network and also suggests solutions and thus can help prevent security events. Let us look at how this looks in the product UI. Click on compliance and under compliance, click on security audit. Select a firewall for which you need the security audit to be done. Again, select a FortiGate firewall. And in this, you can see that the configuration loophole events, there are 0 critical events. There's 1 high, 4 medium, 2 low, and 5 info. Now let us check one of the sections again listed here. Let us say, for example, select section 2.2, clear text telnet service enabled. If you look at this event has a overall high criticality mentioned here. So telnet, why? Let's see why. So telnet provides no encryption or encoding, so all network traffic, including the authentication, is transmitted between the client and the server in clear text. So Firewall Analyzer has determined that network telnet services was enabled on this specific device. So an attacker or a malicious user who was able to monitor the network traffic between a telnet server and a client would be able to capture the authentication credentials and any data. Furthermore, the attacker could then use this authentication credential to gain a level of access to the specific device. So the impact of this loophole is also given, which is again high, since hackers can get access to the data, and the ease of attack again is easy, since all the hacker needs is a network packet and a password stripping tool that can be downloaded from the internet to penetrate the network. A recommendation is also provided so that Jim can go back to his firewall, make the necessary changes according to the recommendation, and make sure this configuration loophole is avoided. So to summarize, Firewall Analyzer is a policy and configuration monitoring tool. It helps us identify policy anomalies, unused rules, and lets us perform in-depth impact analysis, thus help in optimizing firewall performance. It also provides out-of-the-box compliance reports for SANs, PCI DSS, NIST, ISO, and NERC. Finally, Firewall Analyzer supports almost all major firewall devices. We have technology partnership with Checkpoint, WatchGuard, and Palo Alto. And the best thing about Firewall Analyzer is that we support more than 50 firewall vendors and 200 firewall devices. So Firewall Analyzer provides the rule management report for the given list of firewalls. And as I mentioned in the beginning, it also provides API-based rule fetching for Checkpoint, Palo Alto, and so forth. And we are adding more firewall devices to this so that you can easily fetch by using the Firewall API. You can find this list. I'll be sharing this PPT with you. You can find this list in this link provided here. So we have a lot more exciting topics to cover on the next training session, which is scheduled on July 30th. To know more on how to set real-time alarm notifications in Firewall Analyzer and to get an understanding of practical applications on how to secure a network by analyzing all the syslog reports generated by Firewall Analyzer, don't forget to join us on 30th July. This next session of Q&A will be taken over by my technical expert, Arvind.
Good morning, everybody. So my name is Arvind, and I'm working with Managed Engine Firewall Analyzer team from past 6 years now. And I provide trainings and technical support for the customers for the Firewall Analyzer application. So I will be giving you the detailed information of the questions that we have received today. So it was a great presentation from Mauli, and so I'm taking forward it to the question and answer session right now. So we will see some of the questions that we have received today. So we have received a lot of questions, out of which we have taken the best questions right now out of the lot. So we will be, I'm sorry if I'm missing any of your questions here. So we will be sharing you all the questions and answers over the email as well. Okay. So let's go on to the first question. So the first question that we have received today is the device is added in Firewall Analyzer, but not getting any data to show. Okay, so this is one of the questions and issues that we been raised by customers who are using the Firewall Analyzer product. Okay, so there are two kind of cases in this question actually. So when it comes to the Firewall Analyzer application, we receive the logs from we receive the syslogs from your firewall devices and show you the information based on the syslogs received, right? So the first thing, the first case can be if you are not able to see any data, even after configuring your firewall device to export the syslogs, is either the syslog packets are not received on the server where the Firewall Analyzer is installed. That can be the one case, or the other case can be if it's if the firewall is configured to export and because by default Firewall Analyzer application listen to the UDP or listen on for this syslog information on the UDP port 1514. So if the firewall device is sending it on a different port, let's say 514, a Firewall Analyzer will not be able to read that until and unless you add the syslog port into the application. So let me just show you that where you can add this syslog port. So when you go into the application settings, under firewall you have this syslog server. Okay, so when you click on the syslog server, we'll show you by default you will be having only 1514 port will be added into this application. Okay, so if you want to add any additional, like if a firewall is exporting only on 1514 and there's no option to export it on 1514, in that case you can just come in over here, click on add, provide a profile name and provide the port number. And if this port is up, that if the port is free, we will take it and we will start showing you the information from the application. So you can also review that by clicking on this live packet count and see whether you are able to see the packet counts getting increased or not on the configured ports, right? So this is the one way that you can actually make sure that the packets are being received. And even still, if you are not able to see the information from your firewall device, the other case here can be the time of your firewall and the Firewall Analyzer server. Okay, so the main important thing over here is that we dump the data in Firewall Analyzer based on the firewall time. Okay, so if there's a time difference between, if there's a major time difference between the firewall device and the Firewall Analyzer installed server, then there is a possibility that you will not see the proper information into the application. All right, so it's very important that the Firewall Analyzer server and the firewall devices are in sync with the timings. Okay, in the timing, so server time and the firewall time should be in sync so that you get the proper data, right? So this was the two cases that comes into this particular question, and if these two cases are identified, then definitely you should be able to see the data into the UI. Okay, so the second question, does your application support configuration analysis for checkpoint devices? Yes, so we definitely support configuration analysis for checkpoint devices as well in the product. We support both CLI and API-based configuration analysis for the checkpoint firewall. So you can, as Mauli mentioned over the session today, you have to just come over here under settings, firewall server, and then device rule. So once you come into the device rule, you can add your devices over here. So based on the selection of devices, based on selection of which device you're selecting, we will provide you different options, like whether it's only going to be API or API and CLI or API, CLI and file. So like that. So you can even import using manual file import, or we do have the automatic options using API and CLI for the checkpoint devices. How to get my device to show up information for unused rules, right? So when it comes to the Firewall Analyzer product, we get the used rule information using the syslogs. Okay, so when we get a syslog file, or when we get the logs from your firewall, we will be able to see the information on the active rules. That means the rules that are getting the hit counts actively. Okay, so we will be able to identify used rule information using the syslog messages, the syslog information that we receive from the firewall, and we get the unused rule information by correlating the used rule and the rules that we fetch from your firewall devices. So that means it's very important for to get the unused rule information from the firewalls. You have to add the device, same under the settings, firewall device rule. So your device should be added under the device rule here, and it should be actively fetching the information. So once that is there, you will be able to see the rule under the rule management. You will be able to see the rule cleanup information, where we will show you the information based on the which rules are unused for the selected time period. So we correlate the information between the used and the available rules, and we match this information and get the detail about the unused rules. So unused rules, objects and interfaces, right? The fourth question that we have received today is it possible to identify anomalies in the configured rules using the firewall analyzer? Yes, so definitely we can do that. In Network Analyzer, under the rule management report under compliance, you have this rule management information, where we show you the detailed analysis on each and every part of the that we can show you based on the rules that we fetched from the device, right? So we show you the policy overview, policy optimization, rule cleanup, rule reorder, and we can do the impact analysis as well. So when it comes to the analyzing the anomalies, it falls under the policy optimization, where we discuss about the various kind of anomaly that can happen on your in your firewall due to the configured rules. Okay, so we show you the redundant the anomalies based on redundancy, generalization, correlation, shadowing, and grouping. All right, so these categories can be also drilled down. Like for example, if you want to see which rules are being redundant in your firewall, you can see, we can just drop down over here and see, select the redundancy, and you can see the redundant rules alone. Same way you can see for generalization, correlation, grouping, and shadowing. So in this way you can easily identify which rules and which rule IDs are creating the problem, and you can accordingly you can change the rules so that you can avoid these anomalies. So basically by avoiding the anomalies, you are improving the performance of the firewall, right? Okay, so the fifth question, is it possible to ignore line/configuration so that it won't appear as a configuration change in the change management report? Yes, this is a kind of a requirement for in some cases where some known lines or known configuration lines that for example, it can be a secret key, okay, on a configuration that is fetched. So when in a secret key, a crypto secret key continuously changing, so it will be keep on changing on every login or every certain seconds, right? So for this security purpose, so whenever we do a configuration fetching, so this line will be always this line will always show as a change in the configuration, which is actually not a change. It's a behavior which is showing as change because we check for the change in a configuration line by line, and if any parameter or any possibility of the change is identified in each line, we will be categorizing it as a modified line or an added line or a deleted line, like that, correct? So in this case, we have to avoid that particular configuration line to not show under the configuration change for a proper reporting, correct? So this is possible with the Firewall Analyzer. So we have something called exclude criteria in Firewall Analyzer. Here under the firewall, under settings, firewall server, you have this exclude criteria option where you can create exclude criteria to exclude a certain or specific line on the configuration, so that whenever we back up the configuration file from this particular device, we will not look into that particular line or that particular content of the line. So you can specify the criteria over here as well. So it contains or starts with, and if it starts with that particular line or starts with a particular parameter on a configuration file, we will be excluding that from showing the difference in the application or a report. Okay, so this way you can you can get the exact information that you need from the regarding the changes in the configuration files. Okay, so how to get immediate notification for configuration changes if anyone is performing changes in your firewall? So this can be done immediately. So where we can do this is under compliance. We have this change management reporting, where we can specify the notifications. So when you go to notification and specify your email address or the SMS, what we do is whenever there's a change happens on in the configuration file, we get update from using the syslog message, right? And with the syslog, we will trigger the backup of this particular device in configuration in the Firewall Analyzer application and detect the change immediately and notify you that there is a change happened and which user done the change as well. So this can be identified, and you have to just specify the notification. You have to specify just email address and save it. Once you save it, we will start getting this. We'll start looking for the information from the firewall configuration file, and if there is any change in the configuration file, we'll trigger the backup in the Firewall Analyzer and show you and give you the detailed information of what line has been changed and who did the change and at what time the change happened. Okay. Okay, so 7th question is, there is a report to verify who changed the configuration? Yes, so you can do that. So under the compliance change management, you can see who actually changed the configuration. So when you go into the information, you can see here. So this is the report that we were looking at in the session as well. So we have identified that the user James has done a change, and what changes has been done, at what time. We have identified at what time the change happened, who did the change, and what is the version of the file which has been backed up. So when you click on it, you will see which line has been changed. So we show you the lines configuration diff based on the added lines, modified lines, and deleted lines, right? So you will see all the information like which line is been modified, which line is been newly added, and which line is been deleted from the configuration file by that particular user, and whatever the change has been done by that particular user will be immediately identified and will be notified to you, right? So in the 8th question, is it possible to update the rules and compliance report on demand? Yes, so we can do that. So this option is available under the device rule option. So when you go into settings, firewall, we have this device rule as we were talking about this option. So in here we have this option to fetch the configuration on demand, as well as we can do the rule fetching on demand from here. So once you click on the icon, the refresh icon here under the config changes, it will immediately go and fetch the complete configuration file from the device and update it into the product. And again, on demand fetch rule that we have is when you click on the on demand fetch rule, will connect to the device and you may fetch the rules, and you can update those newly fetched rules manually. And also you can export the configuration file from here. On demand option, you can export the latest configuration file that has been backed up from here in a text file, clear text file format, also for analysis. Okay, so let's move on to the ninth question that we have today. So can we update rule reorder position change automatically in Firewall Analyzer? Okay, so we only we are as we mentioned, we only analyze the information and provide you the reporting features in the product. Okay, we do not have the management level, or we do not do the change level management in the, or the changes in the configuration in the firewall devices. Basically, when it comes to the compliance rule reorder, I will show you the reorder option under the compliance and rule management and the rule reorder. So in the rule reorder, we can only show you, or we can only suggest you that you can reposition your rule to a different position so that you can improve the performance of your firewall device. We do not have an option currently to push this configure or push this position change commands from the application itself. We currently we only suggest you to change the position of your rule so that you can improve the performance, and you have to manually do it on the firewall only. Right? All right, so that's all about the questions that we have received today. So I will pass it on to Mauli, and he will finish it off for the today's session. All right, thank you for your time. Have a nice day.
Hi, this is Mauli here again. If you need more help on a product, kindly visit our help page or post your questions in our forum. Feel free to reach out to us, to our support team by mail or by phone. Again, this PPT will be shared to you and all the details will be given to you. And if you want to know more on firewall rule policy and ACL best practices, firewall change request process, firewall change management best practices, and firewall compliance, download a free ebook on 10 firewall best practices for network security admins. The download link is given in the PPT, and the same will be shared to you via mail, or you can go to ebooks.fwanalyzer.com right now and download the ebook. As mentioned in the training, we have also deployed a new feature in Firewall Analyzer known as the Rule Impact Analysis. And the Firewall Analyzer's Rule Impact feature lets you perform in-depth impact analysis for a proposed new rule. Before you make the new rule live, you can use the Rule Impact feature to determine if the proposed new rule is going to impact the existing rule set negatively. If you want to know more about this feature, you can again read our latest blog, Rule Impact Analysis, a new dot of Firewall Policy Planning. This will again be shared to you via mail. If you want a detailed demo of the feature, please request for a personalized demo and our technical experts will get back to you. Thank you.